They say every day is for the thief, one day for the owner of the house. But ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, has reversed the role. It is now every day for the owner of the house. If you're involved in bribery, over-invoicing, or any shady deal, the day of reckoning has come. ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, is watching you. If you're reported for any corrupt practice, you'll be investigated, prosecuted, and punished. Corruption is harmful to our nation. Join the campaign against it by reporting any corrupt practice to ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Let we join hands with ICPC, make them better.
Let's make Nigeria great again.
ICPC, they want you.
One hand for corruption.
Break the chain of corruption now. Don't give, don't take. This message is brought to you by ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
ICPC, by its Establishment Act, Section 6B to D, is mandated to review on a periodic basis the systems, procedures, and operations of public and private sector institutions in order to determine institutional vulnerabilities that can engender corruption in the organization. In line with this mandate, the Commission developed an Ethics and Compliance Scorecard, also known as the SCORECARD, to address this gap. We bring you highlights from the report of the Commission's findings on the system study and review on some selected MDAs. Welcome to Corruption Must Go, ICPC's weekly television program. I am your host, Murna Barnabas Atiai. Also on our menu are updates on anti-corruption stories, character-building drama, as well as ethics and values. Let's join Ruth Awadi for anti-corruption stories. It's over to you, Ruth.
Corruption not in my country.
Welcome to Studio Airline.
Oh, thank you. Please, we need ticket to Abuja. Yes.
Oh, so sorry, sir. The seats are fully booked.
Hello, ladies.
Good day, ma'am.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Please, I need a ticket to Abuja.
Oh, sure.
40,000, man. Okay. Here.
Excuse me. Abuja.
Yes.
But you people told us that tickets are finished. Abi?
When you asked for tickets, there was no ticket.
Exactly.
So this is what you people do. You hoard tickets and use them for your private business. This is the same reason why, when we get into the flight, half of the seats are empty.
Okay. You can call Minister of Aviation.
Excuse me? So this is what you do? You hoard tickets for your PP? This is corruption and
Not in my country. Stop corruption now.
Corruption not in my country.
Thank you, Murna. Welcome to this segment on anti-corruption stories. I am Ruth Awudi. The need for the recovery and repatriation of Africa's stolen assets became the main focus of discussion as ICPC commemorated the 2019 African Union Anti-Corruption Day in 15 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, recently. The event, which was organized in collaboration with the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, PACAC, Center for Democracy and Development and Pan-African Strategic and Policy Research Group, had the theme towards a common African position on asset recovery. Delivering a welcome remark during an event marking the day in Abuja, the ICPC chairman, Professor Bolaji Owasanye, who was represented by a board member of the commission, Mr. Obiora Igwedibia, revealed that Africa loses an estimated sum of $90 billion annually through illicit financial outflows. Professor Owasanye therefore spoke on the importance of recovering stolen wealth, saying that the weak and the vulnerable were the worst hit victims of this crime of corruption.
It is still very disheartening that despite these efforts and international commitments, corruption remains a major threat and hindrance to African states, preventing them from establishing truly democratic institutions and attaining sustainable socio-economic development.
In his special remarks, PACAC chairman Professor Itse Sergey also underscored the significance of asset recovery to the fight against corruption.
The Assets Recovery Program has the advantage that the state does not have to prove that anybody is guilty of looting before the assets are recovered. On the contrary, by the proviso of Section 36(5) of the Constitution, it is a person who claims to own the assets who has a duty to establish that he acquired the property or assets legitimately. In other words, the onus of proof is reversed in this case. This is why in some of these cases of the forfeiture of assets, the purported owner of the assets does not even bother to come to court to defend his right to the assets. They simply abandon them to the federal government. Because to try to prove it would be to admit that they acquired it with public funds, and therefore such properties constituted or would constitute proceeds of crime.
In a keynote address during the event, the Solicitor General of the Federation and Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Justice, Mr. Dayo Akpata, who represented the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osibajo, lent credence to the fact that corruption mostly affected the downtrodden, the less privileged, and the poor.
Corruption undermines African security, generates huge economic damage, and violates human rights. This gives a sense of urgency to the fight against corruption, as failure to address corruption inhibits sustainable long-term growth and undermines human development. The menace of corruption on African continent is endemic, as it negatively affects all aspects of people's life, and those who suffer most are the vulnerable, the downtrodden, the less privileged, the poor, and the marginalized. Despite the fact that AU have undertaken various commendable regulatory instruments and established different institutions to combat corruption in Africa, the ugly trend continues unabated.
The event also featured panel sessions with discussions focusing on adopting a common African position on asset recovery and asset return, and sustainable approaches to the management of recovered assets in Africa. In his contribution during the first panel session, Vaclav Prusa of Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center and Transparency International noted that civil society organizations were a valuable partner to broker international cooperation and promote accountable utilization of recovered assets. Other discussants also expressed concerns over the management and utilization of recovered assets and the need for Africa to take a position for the unconditional return of stolen assets. The commemoration will snowball into an international conference on corruption, wealth, power, religion and democracy, and a workshop on developing a civil law approach to corruption and Africa Impunity Index. In another development, ICPC has sworn in new officials and members of the Students Anti-Corruption Vanguard SAV of Bingham University. The event, which comes on the heels of increasing popular demand for measures that are stakeholders inclusive against the spate of corruption in higher institutions in Nigeria, took place at the permanent site of Bingham University located in Karu along Abuja-Kefi Expressway. Speaking during a brief courtesy call on the Vice-Chancellor before the swearing-in ceremony, ICPC Chairman Professor Bolaji Owasonye, who was represented by Mrs. Azuka Ogugwa of Education Department, had informed the VC of the philosophy behind SAVs in higher institutions in Nigeria.
Another major objective of the club, which should be of interest to some of you, is to establish and nurture an enduring non-violent revolution against corruption. ICPC wants a revolution against corruption, a non-violent revolution against corruption.
In his response, the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Barnabas Curix, who was represented by the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Professor Alexander Adeleye, expressed delight at how ICPC carries privately owned institutions, including universities, along in its anti-corruption activities. At the ceremony proper, in a paper presentation titled Corruption, the Dream Killer, participants were enlightened on the several ills of corruption and its daunting consequences on the future of Nigerian youth. Participants afterwards sought to know how the Commission could protect students who reported cases of sexual harassment. It was clarified that ICPC's Assembly Law provides for the protection of informants and information on all matters of corruption and other related offences.
It's very exciting because, you know, Bingham is a faith-based university. We are promoting those core positive values of transparency and accountability, and we are trying to mold these young people for the future. And so we think that you are complementing what we are just doing in this our Christ-centered environment, and we also are excited because it will start a conversation of how to stamp out corruption first in our environment, and then they can take it to their homes. I think that's what we are all doing, and we are happy that being one of the private universities that we are visiting. I think Nigeria belongs to all of us, so everybody, whether you are in a private university or you are not in a university, everybody has a role to play, to do something to shun corruption and shun evil in their own little way, because every long journey starts with a step, and if everybody starts taking the first positive step, we will get there one day.
I'm very happy that the ICPC team honored us with their presence, and even when they stepped further to giving us a presentation on what corruption is, I believe that people have been enlightened, knowing that corruption is not just in politics and government bodies, but it starts even with students and youth, and I am very happy about that. I've been given a motto, shun corruption, it is evil, and also I would work with other executives that would be people of integrity, of honesty and good character in everything I would do, and would work together and actively with the team and with other authorities to make sure that the objective of the Vanguard is brought to a reality.
What message do you have for students of Bingham University?
I want every student of Bingham University to understand that when we talk about corruption, we're not just looking at other leaders or people that are holding positions, but even in the midst of students as individuals, we have to take that step and acknowledge that we are students of integrity and not just look at the leaders, because we are leaders of tomorrow. So if we start as students, we know that the future is bright and better.
I have a simple message for students. Take up this club as a great opportunity for us to fight corruption in Nigeria, because this is the only way to start from the grassroots and fight corruption. By the grace of God, I can't say it is by my power, but by God's grace. And I will say, by the grace of God, we shall do something great for this club. I have a simple message. We need their support, and we need them to be fully ready Student Vanguard committee members.
Over 300 new members of the university's SAV were sworn in, while the oath of office was administered to 5 officials. SAV is one of the successful interventions and youth-friendly initiatives of ICPC, which has been specially tailored to provide a robust opportunity for students of tertiary institutions to initiate and take ownership of measures aimed at curbing corruption within their institution. That would be all on this segment. Corruption Must Go continues with Muna. Stay with us.
If you're just tuning in, this is Corruption Must Go. The Ethics and Compliance Scorecard was developed by the Commission to translate in comparative perspective the findings of its systems and studies conducted in MDAS. It outlines some ethics and integrity standards that ministries, departments, and agencies must comply with in management, performance, service, and professional conduct setting. In the light of recent findings on the abuse of personnel and capital development funds by some MDAs, ICPC conducted an integrity score analysis on 108 MDAs in the FCT as a pilot project. ICPC Chairman Professor Bolaji Owasongi explains further on the findings.
Summary, we found that most MDAs lack core values and system to guide the staff. They do not have domesticated codes of conduct and ethics and policies that regarding acceptance of gift, donation, hospitality. Government-wide civil service rules, where they exist on these issues, are either ignored or completely discountenanced. Most MDAs do not have fraud prevention strategies, such as checks and balances, periodic published audited accounts, stock verification systems. The management of some of the MDAs do not institute system studies or corruption risk assessments, and thus there is no input for decision making for system improvement. Many MDAs do not have anti-corruption transparency units as internal checks to corruption risks, and contrary to explicit government directives and circulars to this effect. Where they actually exist, they are hardly allowed to function, and they are not allowed to direct access to the chief executive of the organization that they are supposed to assist to curb corruption without hindrance or interference from other management staff. Therefore, they are not protected from executive or office bureaucracy.
In view of the Commission's findings on the pilot phase, Mr. Abia Udofia of the Corruption Monitoring and Evaluation Department tells us more on the Commission's deployment of the scorecard in the MDAs.
Welcome to Corruption Must Go.
Good evening, ma'am. Thank you for having me.
Sir, can you tell us in layman's terms what a scorecard is?
Well, a scorecard is like any report card. It measures your projection, what you intend to achieve. It measures your progress of such a program, and of course your performance in such program. It's just like any card which anybody may have, even individuals have. You want to check your activities in a year and how good you've been going at your program. It's like any report card in the school. You have subjects, you have courses, and over time you have exams, and you are scored, along your subject and your courses. So that's just what it's all like. I mean, it looks like.
Then how did the scorecard come about?
Well, the Commission is inclined to its preventive mandate. We are very much interested in ensuring that we stop corruption, particularly through prevention. And we have so many tools. We have the system study, corruption risk assessment, and this ethics and compliance scorecard is one of such tools. And the ECS was initiated in 2016, and we had the first deployment. The pilot program was in 2016 with 25 MDAs, and we noticed certain gaps in those in the deployment, and we studied the issues and we trained the staff involved. And in 2019, with the new board and with our proactive chairman, who has been very supportive, we have deployed it in 280 MDAs, ministries, parastatals, universities, hospitals, government teaching hospitals, and so forth. So it's been an eclectic, a wide-ranging theme covering almost all sectors of the economy and the polity.
Now, in this case, what are the contents of a scorecard?
Well, the scorecard has 3 key performance indicators. One is the management culture and structure. Second is financial management and systems. And the third one is administrative systems. Then under this, we have the sub-indicators. For instance, under management, you want to see how you comply with the law that set up your agency organization. Do you have a board, for instance? If you are supposed to have a board, do you allow your staff to partake in decision making? Do you give your mission statement, the mission statement? Do you make it known to the public? Do you display it? And do you have gifts and hospitality policies? And how compliant are you to those policies? That's for management. Then we have the financial systems. How compliant are you to procurement laws? Do you submit annual reports to government? Do you also have e-policy payments compliance? And asset verification, do you have such in place, store unit reports, and so forth? Then for administrative, we want to know if you have ACT2. ACT2 is the anti-corruption and transparency units in your agency. Do you have reward, punishment, and discipline? And we look at how you keep in touch with certain rules of anti-corruption. Are you compliant with ethics and compliance? And so forth. So these are just a summary of what we have in the ethics and compliance scorecard. So this.
No doubt, the ultimate goal of the Commission's deployment of the scorecard is to have MDAs understand the quality of their performance and take account of their level of compliance with operational service delivery and accountability standards as required by the mandates of the institution. Furthermore, the assessments and scores will create a greater sense of urgency for MDAs to strengthen their accountability systems and operate with greater efficiency and service excellence. Remember, you can always get in touch with us on our social media platforms as shown on the screen. You can also watch the program on our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/ICPC Nigeria. That's our package for today. See you again next week.